Guys, I don't know how to say this, but I think I'm a fan of shiny Pokemon. No, for real, I think I may have a problem when it comes to these hard to find fictional creatures. At this point, I think it's safe to say that capturing shinies has become my favorite pastime in all of video games, and there's no way that I haven't put at least 1,000 hours into my hundreds of hunts across multiple generations. And after an incredible 2-year journey for my holy grail of shiny Pokemon, I thought that now would be a perfect time to rank the best ones as a sort of celebration. Of course, I've spoken at length in multiple videos on this subject in the past, including a top 10 best of list compiled back in 2015. But that was me trying to pick which Pokemon I thought were universally ranked as the greatest shinies, which is why it included fan favorites like Greninja and Lucario. But since then, there have been 2 generations of new Poké Monsters to hunt, and unlike back then, I would actually consider myself a fairly well-versed shiny hunter today. That being said, this is going to be a list of my personal favorites, so if you're sensing some bias, that's because there is. If you disagree, that's obviously fine, and I'd love to hear some of your favorites in the comments down below, but this is my list, and I promise you, it's going to get weird. Also, there aren't going to be any legendary or mythical Pokemon on this countdown. Not because they're bad, but because when I started making this countdown, 7 out of my top 20 fit into those categories. Don't worry though, because I actually plan on ranking those particular groups as well as the Ultra Beasts in their own separate video. But that's still a few months away, and I'm getting kind of off topic. So without further delay, here are my top 10 favorite shiny Pokemon. This first entry is an example of how sometimes the simplest ideas are the absolute best. And even though I'm more of a yellow delicious guy myself, I can't help but enjoy Applin's Granny Smith colorway. When I saw all of Generation 8's new shinies, there were a ton that I immediately wanted to hunt, but there was nothing, and I mean nothing, that I needed more for my shiny decks than this goofy grass dragon. The gorgeous shades of green not only better complement its eyes, but also better convey both of its typings and make it feel more draconic than the original. It also helps that in a generation of muted gray, blue, and pink shinies, it's unapologetically different, and having 2 evolutions and a Gigantamax form doesn't hurt its appeal either, even if Flapple is the clear winner. Bold, brilliant, and definitely simple, this sour apple stays fresh right down to its core. Pretty sweet pun, right? Spiritomb to me is one of the most iconic ghost types in a franchise full of spooky specters, but I've always felt like the use of green, though good, doesn't quite encapsulate this forbidden Pokemon's dual typing or origin properly. However, as soon as it turns shiny, it outclasses its original counterpart in every way, somehow looking more haunting while still standing apart from its ghostly peers. The specific shades of blue and purple are almost hypnotic in how well they work together, and among all non-legendaries, resetting for a shiny Spiritomb in Platinum is at the very top of my dream hunts. The 4th and 5th generation sprites are absolutely stunning, and even though its 3D model doesn't reach quite the same level of magnificence, it's still really good. So here's hoping we won't have to wait too much longer to see this brilliant Banshee sparkle in Generation 8. If you've been following this channel for a while, you may know that it's been a tough road for Umbreon. Towards the tail end of Gen 6, it was far and away my favorite Pokemon, but having put more time into the franchise over the past 4 years than my entire childhood and adolescence combined, it slowly but surely slipped out of the top spot as I forged stronger bonds with other digital companions. Still though, when it comes to shinies, there's no denying that at least in terms of pure visual appeal, you'll be hard-pressed to find many that can stack up against the brilliance that is Umbreon's Midnight Makeover. The blue rings are amazing, but let's be honest, it's those yellow eyes that seal the deal. The way they contrast against the black fur and reflect the moon at its fullest only strengthened this design, and so when it came to creating a shiny palette for another evolution, it made sense to follow the Moonlight Pokemon's lead. Okay, Sylveon's shiny form is actually more of a reversal of its original color scheme than some sort of homage to Umbreon. But I can't help but feel like these 2 opposing themes perfectly complement each other, especially with the way both of their shinies lead with a bright blue and change up the eyes to better represent their design philosophies. So I don't know, I can't choose. In my mind, these 2 shinies are so different and yet somehow belong together. They're like the April and Andy of the Pokemon universe. And that's why I had no choice but to feature them both on this list. I think that aside from Umbreon, this next entry has to be the most universally beloved shiny that also cracks my personal top 10. And that's because when it comes to what people admire the most in these rare pocket monsters, this pseudo-legendary checks every box. Its base design is already among the series' best, but then you paint Metagross a gorgeous metallic silver that brings its primary steel typing to the forefront, and it just makes everything better. Add in some gold to complete the look, and you've got a reflective shiny that screams both exclusive and expensive. And finally, as if it was even needed, this powerful behemoth not only received one of the best Mega Evolutions, but also got some major exposure via Steven's role in the X and Y anime series. I may not have any crazy history with it, but there's no denying that shiny Metagross is out of this world. Why was Tangela ever blue in the first place? Yeah, I know it's supposed to be seaweed, but it's still a little surprising considering it's a pure grass type from Generation 1. If you haven't noticed yet, I lose my mind when a Pokemon's shiny better reflects its typing or design themes. And not only does Tangela's palette swap do this, but I also think it contrasts against its red shoes much better. This shiny was the one I wanted the most when I first started hunting in Let's Go Pikachu. But despite how good it looks in the more recent games, and it does look good, for my money, the best interpretation of this Vine Pokemon can be found all the way back in Crystal, where the green was a little bit lighter. Regardless of gen though, this Medusa-like monster always stands out, and although I'd also take a green Tangrowth over the original any day of the week, shiny Tangela is so perfect that I can never bring myself to evolve it. At this point, it's no secret that I love virtually everything about Gen 5. So it's likely no surprise that many of the shinies introduced in Black and White are among my favorites in the entire series. I'm not kidding when I say that creatures like Bisharp, Ferrothorn, and even Tepig all narrowly avoided making this list. Regardless of how good they are though, there are still a few others that mean the world to me, and cracking my personal top 5 is Gglith. This compressed rock Pokemon was the first shiny that I got from a trade using the GTS. I think I gave the other person a Chimchar or something, so I'm almost 100% sure it was hacked, but at the time I didn't care, because aside from a Wingull I accidentally caught all the way back in 2004, I still didn't know too much about these rare entities. As you can imagine, getting a random shiny out of nowhere had me ecstatic, but to make things even better, this one looked fantastic too. The way the neon blue crystals explode out of the deep purple body always make me think of Chargestone Cave, and though I wish the eyes didn't have that reddish color to them, I still think overall it's a vast improvement on the original. Heck, it's one of the few Gen 5 shinies that arguably got better transitioning into 3D. So between its impact, excellent design, and remarkable use of color, shiny Gglith rocks. But as good as it is, it still doesn't hold a candle to the next Pokemon on this countdown. Chandelure is the only shiny on this list that I've either A, never caught, or B, never used in battle. So for it to make it this high on a ranking of my personal favorites, you know that this one's aesthetics must be insane. Now, for most of these entries, I'm picking Pokemon that look better shiny, but in this case, there's absolutely nothing wrong with its original colors. In fact, if the two palettes were swapped, it would still more than likely crack my top 10. It's just that perfect. But still, I'm thrilled that we live in a world where we got to see what this ghostly Pokemon looks like with its secondary fire typing as a base. The orange flames igniting out of the black body screams Halloween, and the crimson eyes only help to complete the illuminating appearance. This is a shiny that needed to exist so we could appreciate the design even more. And for blazing a trail, Chandelure earns its top 4 position. Okay, no more playing around. These are the top 3, and each of them made me the shiny hunter that I am today in some explicit way. And first up, we have the one that set me on this amazing and often arduous path with Zarua. Now, I don't think that this tricky fox Pokemon is the best looking of Generation 5's shiny offerings. In fact, it honestly wouldn't even crack my top 5 Unova shinies on appearance alone. That's not to say it doesn't look good, because it absolutely does, for very similar reasons as Umbreon. However, it was during my first Black and White playthrough that I decided that this was the one shiny that I needed to hunt for myself. You see, at the time, Zarua and its evolution weren't available in the games unless you'd activated an event, which I had sadly missed. So when, like Gglith, someone traded me a Zoroark on the GTS, I felt like I'd somehow won a trophy or something, and I immediately got to breeding. At this point, I kind of knew what shinies were, but it was only after a trip to Bulbapedia that I gained a better understanding of how to stack the odds in your favor, and I knew that if I wanted to get my own shiny Zarua, the simplest way was to use the good old Masuda method. So I threw my male Zoroark in the daycare, got myself a Japanese Ditto, and waited, and yeah, I eventually gave up. I don't even think I made it to 100 eggs, but it was an eye-opening experience to the world of shiny hunting, and it's all because of how rare that one pesky fox was to me that I buckled down a generation later and took the whole thing more seriously. And so, I guess it's because of this elusive blue kitsune that the rest is history. This is a tough one, guys. I mean, I literally have a tattoo of this next Pokemon, so how could it only be the runner-up? Well, for now, you'll have to wait on that explanation, but at the very least, I can say that Mimikyu is the shiny Pokemon that changed my life. How so? Well, it was the first Sun and Moon hunt that I streamed on RandomTens, and if it's not the place where I first met you, it's very likely that it's because of that stream that you eventually discovered this channel. Before Gen 7, I was actually doing alright on YouTube. I certainly wasn't the most popular uploader, but the baby rhinos and I were having a pretty good time. But during that Mimikyu stream, hundreds of people from across the world found this channel, and in doing so, opened so many doors and allowed me to forge some truly unbelievable memories with so many of you. It was the moment that sort of finally proved to everyone in my circle, my parents, my friends, and even my teachers, that this whole YouTube thing maybe wasn't so crazy after all. And it enabled me to make better content and eventually led me to my previous job where I gained even more experience and made a ton of super talented friends. So yeah, Shiny Mimikyu is a pretty important one to me, and thinking about it always brings me back to the craziest and most exciting period of my life. Also, it has to be one of the most brilliant designs and absolute best shinies that Game Freak has ever produced. However, the final spot on this list belongs to a bizarre edition that they had no say in at all. Well folks, we finally made it. We've seen lots of ghosts, surprisingly no starters at all, and probably enough blue to fill every ocean in Hoenn. But this is it, guys. This is my holy grail, my gold medal and my white whale all rolled into one goofy package. And so, without wasting any more of your precious time, my favorite shiny for now and almost certainly forever is Heracross. Yes, Heracross. The beloved bug-fighting beetle introduced in Generation 2. But in this exceptionally rare case, being shiny isn't enough to cut it. No. As previously stated, it would take a miracle, something utterly ridiculous, to dethrone Mimikyu from its Iron Throne. And so, things got ridiculous. Over 2 years ago, I discovered that though it was extremely time-consuming, there were players who had successfully shiny hunted in the GameCube Pokemon games. And in one of those titles, Pokemon Colosseum, it was actually possible to obtain not just a shiny, but a shadow shiny. At the time, there were only a handful of trainers who had successfully accomplished the feat, and considering that resets could last anywhere between 2 to 10 minutes, or possibly even longer depending on your target, it made sense why that number was so low. So after doing what little research I could, I opted to go for Heracross, as not only was it found during a portion of the game where you had access to the Master Ball, but it also had a wildly different shiny than anything I'd ever seen before. Instead of being all purple like in Gen 2, or all magenta like in every generation since, this ridiculously wrong model sort of got caught between the two. And so, after setting out on this absurd challenge in August of 2018, and more than 14,000 soft resets, I finally captured Honshu, the world's first recorded shiny Shadow Heracross, back in May of this year.
Oh!
Oh! Oh! What happened?
No way!
Oh my god!
Oh my god!
Oh!
Oh my god!
He's since been purified, and sadly he won't retain his abnormal coloring once he's transferred into Pokemon Emerald and beyond, but my plan is to eventually get every possible ribbon for this absurdly rare Pokemon, and hopefully spread the word about the supremely disciplined and unbelievably kind GameCube shiny hunting community that helped me keep my sanity during the hardest hunt of my life. So now, hopefully you can understand why this lovable baby rhinoceros beetle means so much to me, even if you can't understand why I'd put so much effort into something so time-consuming. But I guess that's what I love about shinies. They're awful and wonderful and can make you scream or even cry depending on the circumstances. They're these little packets of colorful data that mean so much to so many people, and despite likely never having another thrill quite like Honshu ever again, I won't be stopping anytime soon. Thank you to everyone who watched this countdown, and as always, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe and ring the bell for more Nintendo content this fall. And if there's any shiny Pokemon you hold near and dear like my Heracross, please let me know your own story in the comments down below. Of course, I also need to give a big shout out to my sponsors, without whom none of this would be possible. You guys are so appreciated right now, and I hope you're all in good health. I'll be back with a brand new non-Pokemon review in a few weeks' time, so please stay tuned for that, and as always, happy hunting, baby rhinos. Peace.